Hello. Welcome. Today we are doing something a bit different. Now, this is the first episode. This will be available for everyone. All episodes will eventually be available for everyone. But if you are one of our Patreon tiers that has this reward and up, you will get a copy of the ebook to read with us. And you'll get to see these videos in very early access as we go through these books. I'm narrating today, but it's usually going to be myself and Gabriel. We'll be talking sort of the book as we go through it, sort of talk about the chapters and that sort of stuff. Sometimes I'll narrate, sometimes Gabriel will, depending how we're going. So today is just myself, by myself, due to the virus and things like that. So let's get started. Today, our book for this month, for April, is Wicked by Morris Gleitzman and Paul Jennings. This book was fucked up as a kid, let me tell you that. Dawn and Rory are being attacked, but the parents don't believe them. Gramps does, but he's bit off the planet, with slurping slobberers, steel sheep, and giant frogs after them. How will Dawn and Rory survive on their own? It's wild, it's wacky, it's wicked. Alrighty, let's get into this. They all reckon I'm a worm, a grub, a monster. I could tell from their faces as I ran out of the church. And from what they were saying, "You're a wicked girl," hissed Miss Kinlock from the Wool Growers Association. I didn't blame him. I'd probably think the same if I saw a kid do what I'd just done. Ruin her own dad's wedding. Leave a church in an uproar and a bride in tears and a minister in shock. I wish Dad had listened all those times I tried to talk to him. Parents don't listen when love's made them dopey. You just have to go along with their mad plans and hope everyone doesn't end up in the poo. That's what I was telling myself this arvo in church while Mrs. Conti from the cake shop was playing Here Comes the Bride on the organ. I'll be okay, I said on my head as Dad and Eileen stepped up on the altar. We can get through this. Dad's a really good dad, even though his brain's just turned to confetti. And Eileen's not a bad person, even though she does dribble a bit when she loses her temper. We'll be right. I wanted to believe it heaps, but it was no good. My neck was hurting. I always get neck tension when I try to lie to myself. I thought a curried egg sandwich might help. I reached out for the next one to me on the pew, the one I'd pinched from the caterers when we dropped into the scout hall on the way to church to check the glitter ball arrived for the reception. I hoped the bread hadn't gone too hard in the heat. Rev Arnott's voice was pretty quiet and I didn't want to disrupt the ceremony with crunching. I lifted the sandwich to my mouth and froze. There was a slug sitting on the bread, looking at me. It's more of a worm than a slug. Slimy, sort of veiny. I'd never seen one like it before. Dad's a shearer, so I've seen lots. You wouldn't believe some of the things that crawl out of the sheep's bottoms. I glared at it and went to knock it off. That's when I saw Rory glaring at me. You'd think grown adults would know better than to put two kids who hate each other side by side in the same pew. Even love-fuddled adults with new shoes that are hurting them a bit should know better than that. But Dad and Eileen were determined. "She's your stepsister," Eileen had hissed to Rory when we got back to the church. "Sit next to her." "Oh, Mum," Rory had moaned. Dad had taken me on one side and given me a pep talk. "Dawn," he said, squeezing my shoulders. "No, it's not easy. We'll all feel more comfortable with each other once we're living together and getting to know each other better." I opened my mouth to remind Dad that Rory and me have known each other for 8 years and he's hated my guts for 5, and I've been going off him in a big way for at least 4.5. Then Mrs. Conti deafened us with the organ. The wedding started. 2 minutes later, Rory was grabbing my sandwich. "It's mine," I whispered, furious. "Hands off." He struggled over the sandwich. "The worm's mine," grunted Rory. He let go of the sandwich and grabbed the worm. "The fuck, Rory?" I chewed my sandwich angrily. How's anyone meant to like a person who keeps worms as pets? Especially when the person's a year older than you is meant to be setting a good example. Rory put the worm into a tin. I stared. Inside the tin was a little troll Rory takes everywhere with him. The one with the wooden body and the dried apple for a head. Try not to make jokes about it because his dad sent it to him. He's the only present he's had from his dad for ages. The troll's shriveled up apple head had been dry and dead. Now it was alive. With worms. It was slobbering all over it and wriggling into the mouth and writhing out of the eyes. It's worse than anything I'd have seen on sheep, even in nightmares. I looked at Rory. He wasn't gagging or being revolted or anything. He was staring at the worms, fascinated. Then I saw something even more horrible. The tin. It was my tin. My Milo tin. One Mum had given me to keep pencils in. I couldn't believe it. Rory had taken it from my room without asking. The last thing Mum had given me before she died and he put slimy, slobbery, revolting worms in it. I felt rage uncoiling inside me, hot tears stinging. In the distance, Rev Arnott was saying that stuff about how if anyone had a reason why these two people should not be joined together in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Before I knew it, I was on my feet. I have, I shouted. I heard the pews creak as everyone stiffened. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. We all hate each other, I said. My heart was pounding in my ears. Dad's mouth was wider than a sheep chute. Not Dad and Eileen, I continued, because they've got sex. The rest of us. Eileen's face was crumpling, and Rev Arnott was clinging to the altar. I ploughed on. We pretend we like each other, but we don't. You should see Rory go off when I catch him using Dad's razor to scrape the fluff off his socks. You see Dad when Rory has a nightmare and gets into bed with Eileen. You should see Eileen when I make friendly jokes about her bottom exercises. Thank you, Dawn, croaked Rev Arnott. Why don't we finish the ceremony and have a family talk afterwards? I turned to appeal to the other guests, rows of open mouths and big eyes. I pointed at Rory. I tried to be friendly with him, and he lets his rat poo in my underwear drawer. I did not, shouted Rory. It was a mouse. Dawn, roared Dad, storming towards me. Sit down. Second marriages never work, I yelled, especially when she's more educated than he is and her son sneaks into his daughter's room and takes precious things. I grabbed at my Milo tin, but Rory hung on and the tin spun out of our hands and crashed onto the tiles. The apple head bounced across the floor. Worms slithered everywhere. I turned and ran out of the church. Dad followed for a bit, shouting, then gave up. I wasn't surprised. Eileen's been more important to him than I have for about a year now. I suppose I was pretty dopey coming here to the old bus because Dad knows that's where I always come when I want to be close to Mum. When the ceremony's over, he'll know where to find me. In fact, I can hear someone crashing through the bush now. Whoever it is, I'm history. If it's Dad, he'll kill me for ruining his wedding. If it's Rev Arnott to tell me I'm forgiven, I've still got to live with Worm Boy. Either way, my life's over. I wish Dad had listened all those times I tried to talk to him. Parents don't listen when love's made them dopey. You just have to go along with their mad plans and hope everyone doesn't end up in the poo. Wait. It's the same page. All right. Does that seem to skip something? Okay. That was chapter 1. It's kind of this thing's weird. So, okay, I see. Takes the text and then just moves it over one. Rightio. Big bad Dawn. Everything is big about her. Big muscles, big head, big mouth. Worst of all, she's my sister. Well, stepsister to be exact. It's not the same. A real sister wouldn't have made a fuss in church over a Milo tin. A real sister wouldn't have nearly let my grubs escape. A real sister wouldn't have... what the heck. I knew she was hiding. Everyone from the wedding was looking for her. Nancy standing up in the church and objecting to the marriage. What a hoot. I have to give her full marks for that. Wish I'd thought of it myself. I didn't want my mum to marry Jack any more than she did. The bus, that's where she would be. That was her hideout. I tucked the Milo tin under one arm and walked along the side of the creek for a while. Then I took the shortcut through the dead cow clearing. I reached the fence of the wrecker's yard and peered in. There it was. A rusting hulk in the middle of the yard. Broken windows, grass sprouting out of the petrol cap, not a speck of paint left. Tree growing right through the bonnet. The whole thing leaned drunkenly to one side. The bus has carried its last passenger. That was one thing for sure. Last passenger. What was I thinking about? I was the last passenger. I had my crook leg to remind me of that. I climbed through Dawn's secret hole in the bent iron fence. I know you're in there, Dawn, I said under my breath. Inside the yard, I crept past the remains of a 68 Ford and round a pile of dented hubcaps. I didn't want Dawn to hear me, so I picked my way forward carefully. I reached the bus and hopped quietly onto the first step. I stopped. I didn't want to go in. I'd been on the bus when it crashed. That terrible crash that I still couldn't remember anything about. There was no time for that now. Gotcha! I jumped up the next 2 broken steps into the back of the bus. Dawn was sitting in the driver's seat with tears in her eyes. You, she spat out. Worm boy, where's your rotten apple man? She shouldn't have said that. Like I was feeling a bit sorry for her sitting in the very seat where her mother had drowned. But when she rubbished my apple man, I could feel my face burning with anger. My dad gave me that apple man, I yelled. Don't you She wouldn't even let me finish. Your dad. Don't give me that. Where is he then? What sort of dad goes off and never writes, never sends a present, not even a Christmas card? My dad gives you stuff all the time. The only thing you've ever gotten from yours is a rotten apple. I run down the aisle between the sagging seats, put my face close up to Dawn's. I shouldn't have said what I did. Not when she was sitting right where it happened, but I was really, really mad. What about your mum? I yelled. She wanted to go away from you. Too bad she drove the bus off the cliff into the river and drowned. Nearly killed me too. Dawn just about exploded. I had really pressed the right buttons. She jumped out of her seat and shoved me onto the floor. The Milo tin rolled down the aisle and the lid popped off. My little apple man spilled out, lay there like a wizened corpse. Dawn sat on my chest and pinned my arms to the ground with her knees. I couldn't move. I could hardly breathe. She was much stronger than me. She knew it. I'm going to get your rotten apple, man, she said. Flush it down the dunny. I squirmed and heaved, but I just couldn't move. If she wanted to, she could do whatever she liked. I knew that if she ran off with him, I'd never catch her. She was too fast. The last I see of my apple man. It's amazing how they make those little apple faces. They get an extra big apple and let it slowly shrivel up so that it's all wrinkled and dry. Then they sew it so it has little eyes and mouth and a chin. They make a wooden body and hey presto, great little troll with an ugly face. Don't touch it, I screamed. I'll kill you. I bucked like a horse, but she just pressed down harder with her knees. It's got worms, she said. Horrible little slobberers. I knew that. I twisted my head sideways and looked at them. I was a bit worried when I first saw them. What if they ate the whole apple head off the doll? Dad would be sad if his present got ruined. The funny thing is, though, the apple man never changed. Slobberers must have eaten something. But what? They couldn't have been eating the apple. There'd be none left. My arms were starting to tingle with pins and needles. Dawn's knees were knobbly. Give in, worm boy, she said. Never, I said. So we just stayed there on the floor of the bus. I stared up into her ugly mug and she glared down into mine. I decided not to look at her, so I fixed my eyes on a seat where the skeleton of a dead goat sat, like a ghostly passenger from the past. How the heck did that get there? It must have wandered in and died. The image of the skeleton should have locked itself in my head. Suddenly Dawn gave a scream and jumped up. She was looking down at the aisle at the slobberers. Typical girl. Tough as an ox, but scared of a few little grubs. Then I looked a bit more closely. Oh no. I scrambled up and backed off. The skin of the apple man had begun to boil. A huge grub erupted from a wrinkled scar on the apple man's face. It wormed out, wriggling. Tiny veins and purple blood, little pinpricks of glowing green eyes, wet fangs and 3 or 4 slobbering, sucking tongues coming out of its mouth. I hadn't seen a slobberer like this before. Maybe they were changing. All towards us, followed by another, and another, and another. Each one the same. It was weird. They slimed out of the apple man's eyes and ears and hair. Soon there were 20 or 30. They advanced towards us in lines of like an army of little snakes. I'm out of here, shrieked Dawn. Suddenly the slobberers stopped. They reared up as one seemed to look about. Then they turned and slithered in panic towards the door. Hey, I yelled. Come back. She won't hurt you. Seems funny to say this, but I didn't want to lose them. Since they'd been living in the apple man, I'd come to like them, even though they were pretty yucky. A bit like tenants renting a house. They lived in the apple man, they didn't really do any harm. And no one else had anything like them. I grabbed the apple man and ran outside the bus. Slobberers were lined up some distance away. They stared at the bus and seemed to be making frightened, slurping noises. Their little tongues flickered in and out. Weird. It wasn't Dawn they were frightened of. She had run out and was already climbing through the hole in the fence, heading for home as quickly as her legs could take her. What a chicken. No, the slobberers weren't scared of Dawn. It was something to do with the bus. To be honest, I thought it was a bit spooky myself. I walked up close to them and put the apple man down on the ground. Come on, guys, I said. Come home. Come home to Daddy. In a flash, they streaked across the ground towards the apple man. They wormed and wriggled and fought each other in the hurry to get back inside. There was a bit of a traffic jam at the nostrils. After a few seconds, they were gone. Everything was back to normal. Now, I picked up the apple man and headed back to the bus. I went inside and put him back in the Milo tin. No point taking risks. I couldn't take the chance that my little slobberers might escape again. Things were already weird enough. I jumped out of the bus and walked towards the hole in the fence. Well, I had to be leaving. Slobberers didn't like that bus. And neither did I. All right. So that's part 1. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was going to be an exciting thing. It's kind of cool because it's going to kind of get me reading more books again. And it's something that we can... There's a few really weird books like this that are quite interesting as children books that I'd like to get across and have a look at. So I hope you enjoyed this and hope to see you in the next part soon. See ya.